Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Nick Casey, the Governor's Chief of Staff. And the reason we had a little press conference today is, as you may be aware, and if not, you can check on the webpage, we have received from our outside auditors our comprehensive annual report. We received this the day before yesterday. It's for the period ending June 30th of 2016. And contained within that is the opinion of our auditors about our situation. And just to tell you, it is an unqualified opinion. And for those of you that don't spend too much time with accountants, an unqualified opinion is the highest assurance that a outside auditor can give you that your financial statements fairly state in all material respects the financial activity and performance for the period in question, which is for 2016. So we now know that even though we've had a lateness on our audit, that is in fact an unqualified audit, and we think that's a very good thing. So I call your attention to this. If you go onto the state's webpage, you can find this if you want to do it. I'd also show you that, although I said the audit's in here, this is what's called the CAFR, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. And what's the CAFR? The CAFR is a compilation of information that comes from everybody that's in the single audit. The single audit includes, in West Virginia, all of higher education, that's the CTCs also. It includes all of the other agencies of the state, with a couple of rare exceptions being I believe the Water Development Authority and the West Virginia Investment Management Board. They are not part of the single state audit that's in there. In addition to getting the CAFR, which contains the unqualified opinion from our CPAs, our outside CPAs, we also receive what's called the West Virginia Single Audit. This is a booklet that's provided to us that gives us information about different things that are important. And let me tell you a little bit about this, which is also online. I guess the burning question, not burning, but the question before us is, why didn't we get our single audit in on time? Well, that's a question for why didn't we get it in 2014? Why didn't we get it in 2015? And why didn't we get it in 2016? Let me point out to you that it's for fiscal year 2016, and Governor Justice took office, I think, on January the 15th of 2017, long after the financial information and the process necessary to create the 2014, 15, and 16 audits was completed on two of them and well down the pipe, as they say, on the other ones. Even though we got an unqualified opinion, our auditors have a responsibility under the generally accepted auditing standards, and I won't bore you with which GASB it is, that's GASB, anyway. But if they find a deficiency in internal control over compliance, they have to report that. But if they find a material weakness in internal control over compliance, they have to list that as a deficiency. They have listed as a deficiency in this information and a weakness. And the weakness is that we don't get across the board almost agencies and the people that are part of the single audit. Many of them failed to meet the timelines necessary to have their information submitted so that we could get the single audit out on time. And I'll give you an example. This is a corrective plan was given to us. And the corrective plan, just so you know, it was on page 77. This said FARS, F-A-R-S, which is the part of the administration's office that compiles the CAFR, the CAFR. FARS continues to work with the governor's office to seek assistance in having the state agencies prioritize completion of an accurate and complete schedule of expenditures in a timely manner. Somebody wasn't giving stuff in a timely manner. Additionally, for prior years, before 2016, this is what they call prior audit findings. There's also a finding from the prior year. This is back in 15. FARS continues to work with the governor's office to seek assistance in having the state agencies prioritize completion of an accurate and complete schedule of expenditures and federal awards. So from 2014 to 2015, now to 2016 audit, that same corrective action has been required. In fact, it was such a problem, apparently, if you all will recall, the House actually passed a bill, House Bill 2852, which they put in on March 13th of 2017, just this last session, which has requirements in it that state agencies and others who are part of the single audit get their information compiled and done in time. That went to the Senate. No action was taken by the Senate. But if you go through that bill, I'd call it to your attention, it says things. You know, a little part of the back of the bill where they explain what the bill's supposed to do. This says, the purpose of the bill is to require the preparation of a comprehensive annual financial report, the CAFR. The bill requires heads of spending units to prepare financial statements. The bill requires notice be given to spending units, establishes deadlines for the spending unit. The bill requires training. The bill prescribes an administrative fine if the required reporting is not timely submitted. The bill provides for response by the head of a spending unit. The bill provides for judicial appeal and establishes deadline for submission of the comprehensive annual financial report, the CAFR. That was in March. That was originated in Committee on Government Organization, March 13th, 2017. The horse was out of the barn by March 13th, 2017. What have we discerned so far as we've gone about an examination from the governor's office with the pure cooperation of our good folks in administration, and everyone else has cooperated greatly, is there has been a steady and constant erosion in compliance with established guidelines beginning in 2012, got worse in 2013, got even worse in 2014, 2015 and 2016 continued to erode. There are established timelines that are laid out. As example, in 2012, there was an October 15th cut line when the information had to be supplied so that these other documents, the CAFR and the audit, could be done. We had compliance probably, you can count the numbers, 90%. In 2013, the compliance started to drop. In 2014, it dropped again. 2015, it dropped again. In 2016, it got to probably the other way. 10% compliance, 90% failure. Why? We've made some examination. We continue to make the examination. There are all sorts of reasons that have been given. They amount from everything to we have staffing concerns, so we don't have enough staff to do it. We have training concerns. In other words, somebody has left and we've got an open spot and there's some training issue to come in. We've got, blame it on OASIS. We've got in one situation, the PERS was slow on getting information that's part of it. And so there are various explanations and excuses as to why they couldn't meet the timeline. And at least our initial examination demonstrates that somebody every year met the timeline. More than one met the timeline every year. But more and more people were not able to meet the timeline. The assumption that we believe is accurate is if somebody could meet the timeline, everybody could meet the timeline. So we're very disappointed in how this has worked out. You all, I think, already have seen from some other information how this impacts the state. It impacts the state primarily through the U.S. Department of Education. In simple terms, the federal government at the beginning of each school year for higher education, including the CTCs, gives you federal funding that goes to money to students, if you would. They give it to you in advance, and you give it out. They have put us on a situation now for the next 5 years. They will not give us the money in advance. The state has to somehow, or these organizations, these agents, I'm sorry, not agencies, but these higher education folks have to fund it themselves and then seek reimbursement from the state. So you basically have to front the money. We had great concerns about that, and I'll say through great work of the people in administration and higher education also, we believe that we are able to handle that for the coming semester, so there'll be no negative impact on the students. So we think we're fine. Now remember, this is a 5-year sanction we're under too. So we know we've got a beat in August, and we think we've got a mechanism to deal with it as we go forward. But it is a mechanism we didn't have to have if these had been done timely. The other thing is there's a compliance requirement that when there's a change in programming at a community technical college wants to do a programmatic change, they now have to go to the U.S. Department of Education and get advance approval before they could do it themselves and not have to go there. Impacts, we think, the CTCs more than it does higher education because of the way the programming works. Why do we care? It's administratively expensive, but it also impacts our workforce efforts. You know, one of the things we're trying to do is to be sure we can be nimble and quick and give workforce folks the kind of training and background they need. This puts another hurdle. How big is that hurdle? We're not sure how big that hurdle is. We're working on that one also. The financial hurdle remains, but we're able to at least for now, know that we can deal with that. What should happen because of this? We continue to look forward. We've kind of bifurcated the review into two areas. A great many folks missed the October 1st date. No excuse that we can find for that. It is inexcusable. It causes problems. The oddity of it is people that are late who aren't in higher education helped cause a problem for higher education. If you were in higher education and you were late, you helped cause your own problem. And you can, when you see the agencies that are involved, you can see how that mixes across the board on that. So the governor has taken the position, and we're going to be more formal about this, that we are publicly making available the list of the timelines and the timelines that were missed. People need to know who was responsible and accountable. They need to recognize that they did really well in 2012, and if they had slippage, they need to do what's necessary to correct it. So that is there. There's another group that we're looking at, and we're not finished with that yet, so I don't have anything much to report on it except this. You ever watch a football game and see a Hail Mary thrown? Our auditors and other people tell us, even though the timelines were set in October, there's another timeline which isn't stated where you might have been able to complete the Hail Mary pass. Even though the information came in late, you might have been able to put it together timely enough so that you could have gotten your audit out on time. We're trying to identify that Hail Mary pass date. And people that couldn't make that date, we're still trying to figure out why. Again, some people made the date, other people came in at different times. You kind of get this Hail Mary date, and people came in after that. So we're still inquiring into that. There always can be mitigating circumstances, but we want to see what those are before we get anything much more interventional than making available the people that missed it. Is this going to happen again? No. It's not going to happen in 2017. And the reason it's not going to happen in 2017 is because everybody knows, they all knew they had a problem, but now they know that anybody's failure to meet the timeline caused real financial and operational and programmatic problems for people within the state of West Virginia. If this was considered a clerical exercise, or if this was considered just something you have to do, and we'll get to it when we want to, that's going to change. It's not going to happen again. It's also not going to happen again for two other reasons. We're trying to persuade the Department of Education to eliminate or waive these sanctions. And one of the things they seem to be interested in is, well, are you going to do it again? So if we're going to make any representations, we're not going to do it again. And the third reason is, this is a financially embarrassing thing for the state of West Virginia. I don't know that the rating agencies, for example, we were the beneficiary of there was an article by Moody's where they published in the financial community this. Now, we are getting ready to go to market with various bonds, whether it be school building authority, whether it be the Garvey bonds, whether it be other bonding that may occur. And does this impact your credit rating? Not on an item-by-item basis, but it does impact your financial reputation. When somebody says, well, you've been sanctioned by the United States Department of Education, Moody's at least thinks it's newsworthy. You want to borrow money from us? It affects, not that we can get the money, but it may impact our credit rating. So it's very important to us we get this done. So we want to give you all an update of the audit is in, it's unqualified, that's wonderful. There are corrective actions been recommended by our auditors, which have been recommended for the past several years. We're going to take it this year. There is responsibility. We've identified agencies that could not meet established deadlines, and we continue our investigation into additional, I'm going to call it post-Hail Mary folks to see where their mitigation is and how that all plays out. I'd take any questions until they tell me I can't. Mr. Bass.
Do you know who missed the deadline?
Yes. You want to list them?
Yes, but
They're available.
why don't you just make phone calls and fire residents the deadline and bring complaints along?
Well, it's interesting, okay? We weren't here when some of these people were there.
You were this year.
We'll give you an example, though. Some of these people, pick an agency, pick a university, for example. They don't work for us. They work for the university. Now, those are people where we have to do some investigation to see what we can do.
How about the people under your purview?
The people under our purview, our investigation continues. So what I'm telling you is,
They missed it.
they missed October 1st. I need to know who missed the Hail Mary date, and we're still investigating that. That's what we're doing.
if that's the case and there's gray area, what about the initial statement that heads were working?
There's no gray, no. I don't want to say there's gray area. We're continuing to investigate into that. What I want folks to appreciate is we're looking at that. There are agencies that need to sharpen their game and get this right next time, okay? This is step 2. The next step is a continuation of the investigation into some of the questions about mitigating factors. There are strange mitigating factors that could be out there. Whether they're persuasive with us or not, I don't know. I'll give you an example. Anybody know what materiality is in an audit? You could be an agency that's so little in dollars that whether you even exist or not is not relevant to the audit. It is relevant to us, but was it relevant to the audit being late? I don't know that that's a mitigating circumstance or not, but we want to know that kind of information before we take additional steps in this.
Nick, maybe I don't understand this fully, but I thought that Oasis was supposed to make this easier.
It's not about Oasis.
Well, I thought Oasis was supposed to help you all audit yourselves.
No, this is external audit. Yeah, Oasis doesn't have anything to do with this particular activity. If you look at that list, anybody in the column that's in white, they all live under Oasis too, and they met their timelines. So Oasis is a dog ate my homework.
Do you know where you're going to come up with the money to temporarily help the schools and help them fund?
Yeah, we have, with the good work of people, Dave Hardy and his folks in revenue, what happens is, I'll just give the basic way it works. To pick any university, say they had an appropriations of $7 million. They draw that down from the state ratably over the year. So what we believe we can do is we will simply take the fourth quarter amount and fund them up front with it. When the reimbursement comes in, we'll take it back, okay? And since we think the trigger dates are the first of the semester, which we're at now, and then basically, December or January, we've got that fourth quarter ability to do that. Some of the institutions actually may do other approaches because some of them might have a foundation or something else that internally they might choose to do it that way, but that's the way that we have found that we can deal with the timing issue on the money.
And will that continue for the next 5 years?
No. The reason I say no is because we know we can do it now. And we're in this budget year. We know we can do it now. We know this budget year. Just take a bad example. Let's just say the legislature would defund the university. We won't have that flexibility. Now, I don't know that the legislature is going to do that, but we won't have that flexibility. So within the current budget year now, we think that's why we're okay in August and September, August, and December, January.
You didn't get some of these till March and April.
Correct.
What's there to investigate?
Investigate. Fairness requires investigation. It doesn't require forgiveness. It requires investigation.
So are you investigating firing?
We're investigating.
Taking the broad view, would you actually describe this as systematic, meaning the system needs investment? Or would you describe it as cultural, meaning people just got used to being late and they accepted that?
I don't know. The reason I say that is again, I go back to the premise. If 1, 2, or 3, or 4 agencies can do it, they didn't have a systemic problem. If the other agencies can't do it, I don't know if it's cultural, maybe they have equipment breakdowns, maybe they have these, I don't say it was mitigated, but that, I don't know why. If one can do it, why can't all? Is kind of my inquiry. And we're,
On Brad's question, if it's not systemic, then is it personnel? I mean, it's one or the other, right?
well, yeah, maybe something else, but yeah, I mean, yeah, oh no, I mean, it could be, I mean, you could even take it the other extreme. If you don't fund somebody enough money to hire the CFO, if it's been a vacant position, you don't have money to pay anybody, that's awful, but I mean, that's I don't know if that's systemic or personnel, but it may cross the lines. If you look at some of the organizations that are well-funded, you'll see a lot of white lines. If you look at the organizations that are poorly funded, not to say poorly funded, but funded differently,
Pretty well funded, they've never made the deadline.
those things happen. I don't know how to explain that. I'm not trying to explain it. I'm just trying to figure them out. Yes.
Well, some of these that really were slower, maybe given an opportunity to like hire additional secretaries, like is there any like wiggle room on funding to give them more personnel?
We only can give them what has been appropriated to them by the legislature. So let's just say, if we discover an investigation that they have a staffing problem, I don't make light of that. I mean, let's talk. We've got open positions I won't say in accounting, but there's open positions in our regional jails because we don't pay enough to keep the workers. So we have vacant positions. So, there may be things like that. Again, that's why we're still investigating it. Does that make an excuse for it? No. But at least it gives us a reason to understand what happened so it doesn't happen again.
There have been references to yourself and the administration secretary making a strong point when the administration came into office in January that this can't happen again then, although clearly it was well into the process then. But can you describe conversation or conversations would have been like? Oh,
broadly?
The message from yourself and Mr. Myers.
We told the cabinet secretaries the audit's been late the last several years. We don't want it late again.
That was at a meeting, or?
We have various gatherings of secretaries at different places. Yeah, we'll get together different kind of things. I know there's an array of within administration. There's folks who try to get this information in from the agencies, who on a regular basis that's John Myers' area in administration make inquiry. Where's the schedule? Where's the schedule? Where's the schedule? And those type of things.
What was the reaction of the cabinet secretaries to that mandate?
You can see how it worked.
That's not what I asked. When did they respond, or you guys told them that?
Oh, we think somebody nods and says, okay.
Okay, so they all agreed, no problem.
Well, you're overstating, Kenny. What they said is, guys, we don't want to have a problem with the audit this year because we're going to go out and have a bunch of bonds. That's one of the things on your radar screen. And there are other things on the radar screen too. Professionalism, how you answer the phone, all sorts of things.
I think just overall, can you just express how frustrating it is that we're
It is entirely frustrating. It is entirely frustrating for there to be this much non-compliance with timelines for something that's as basic to government as it is to business, which is your audited financial statements. It's just, it is, I will say it's like the air conditioning. It should just work. When it doesn't work, it aggravates people. And being an old CPA, I have difficulty with compliance issues such as this on a long-term basis so that you get sanctioned for 3 years.
Higher education has been focused here because it took the sanctions, but there are so many other areas of state government that receive federal money.
Yes.
Have there been similar warnings, for example, for Medicaid money or highways money?
Our fingers are crossed that there will not be similar warnings like we got from the people here. I'm not aware of other compliance, past compliance issues, but that's part of our kind of inquiry. One thing they call it in accounting, call it ERM, Enterprise Risk Management. I dare say before this came in late, nobody in the enterprise knew we were at risk for this federal funding or the sanction issue. That's called Enterprise Risk Management. I don't know that we are at risk in the governor's office, for example, on a grant, but part of the overall picture is to do some ERM with our agencies and say, okay, what are we at risk if we don't have the audit come in on time? And let's hope there isn't any other risk, and I regret it for the higher ed, but maybe Medicaid does have a risk. We want to know what it is. Maybe highways has a risk because they do get federal funds. We want to know if there's a risk so we can actually be clear about meeting our compliance timelines.
What's your time on finishing your investigation and any possible action you may take as a result of that?
I'm told that given the number of folks that we're talking to and the like, and that's ongoing even as we speak, I'd like to see something in the next 10 days. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is significant. Not fixing it is significant for us. We regret it's here. We don't own it, but we do. We inherited it, so we do own it now. We're going to fix it. The governor's very clear about good government is good business. Government's not business, but certain habits and practices from business should be here. This is one of them. Rusty.
2017 deadline is October.
Yes, the date that's already published. Everybody knows when it is. The auditors, they finish one.
It's August.
Well, it depends on which agency you're at. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. You mean for these people? Yeah, it's October.
So they got 2 months.
Right. They got 2 months to.
What makes you think they'll be in compliance?
We had this press conference, and you have the list of names that are out there, and they're going to know they're going to be in compliance next year because we are a public body, and the public knows the responsibilities that lie upon the various agencies in higher education now. They need to have them in on time. This is the way it is. And if they have, I mean, if somebody says, I have an opening or a gap, tell us. We'll help you staff it, or temporary staff it, or do something else to do it. Yes?
Could it get worse next year if someone was late? Like, could there be additional sanction?
Well, it can't be better. I mean, I'll tell you what, no, the sanction for 5 years is just what it is. Now, our goal is to persuade the folks that we're going to have better performance and therefore they should trust us. So we don't have an arrangement with them yet, but that's part of our strategy is to say, we understand it, we've taken action to deal with it, and it won't happen again, so please eliminate these sanctions or waive them or defer them somehow.
You kept saying that you believe the life will be available for scholarships when they start. Is there anything that would prevent them?
No, we're confident. I mean, I want the students to not worry. That we're fully 100% confident that for the semester we're going into, that there will not be a funding issue that will impact negatively any students anyway.
One more question.
You don't run the universities, right? We said that there's only twice in 5 years that anybody's made the deadline.
Point well taken.
How do you fix that?
Well, you do, the governor's office, not over time, certainly appoints members to the Board of Governors to the folks that, that are there. Right. And we have some help through the Higher Education Policy Commission, depending on which, institution we're talking about. So there's some other places there, but yeah, they're in a single audit. They're in a single audit, and we don't control their staff. So that complicates it. Thank you all.
You said 10% compliance?
Oh, you always have to, well, it depends on, I didn't add them up.
Okay. But did that refer to meeting last October's deadline?
Yes. In fact, I apologize. It's less than 10% compliance.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you all. We'll be back.
And can I ask you